Hello and welcome to this very special edition here on WION. I'm privileged to be joined by a man who is one of the most versatile athletes of all time. Now, usually in athletics, you have a master of one event or two events, but Daley Thompson was a master of 10 events in the decathlon. Daley, 10 events, that's what strikes you, because usually, you have one person dominating an event like a Usain Bolt, but you were dominating 10 events, and those 10 events made up Decathlon.
Well, I was okay. I wasn't as fast as Bolt and couldn't jump as far as Mike Powell, but yeah, no, tried my best in all the things.
But Daley, that's a name. Your name and your aura is something that was, dominated all my growing years. Everybody at that point of time, even in India, knew about Daley Thompson. That showed how good you were.
Oh, thank you very much. I think that it was a funny time back in the 80s, because football was not so popular. It was gone down, I think, because of the hooliganism and all that. And in my country, then athletics was the most powerful international sport that we had, and also I was able to stand on the shoulders of giants like Sebastian Coe and Steve Cram and Steve Ovett, and so these made it very easy for me to be seen, because they made the sport so popular.
You know, at your peak, Daley, you were unbeaten for 9 years. You just can't imagine something like that happening now, because you have races, people tend to lose races, people tend to then, win the next one. But for 9 years, you were unbeaten.
Yeah, no, I was very lucky, and if you asked me what my best achievement was, I would say that to be at the top of the sport for nearly 10 years, then for me this is the thing, because a few people, they are famous overnight or maybe famous for one season and stuff, but I was very lucky to be able to make a whole career from it.
But is that because of the dedication to training? No drinking, no smoking, no extracurricular activities. It was just, you were, to use the word single-minded bloodiness, I have to win. Was that what fired you up?
Well, I think it's part of it. I also enjoyed doing all the training, and I enjoyed doing all the competing. And I think that if you have that kind of positive mental attitude and you get out there and do the work that needs to be done, then the results tend to happen. And
lots of results. Any favourite result?
No, not particularly, because I think in sports, as we all know, you get what you train for. And usually if you train really hard and you've got the right amount of talent, then you'll get the result. And I was very fortunate in that I had a fair bit of talent, and I was happy to work, and I got my results.
Yes, but the talent has to be honed. It just can't happen overnight. Every great player has to keep training. I asked Mark Spitz that as well. Was there any particular favorite of all the events in your decathlon?
No, and part of the reason for that is when I first started, my coach said to me that a chain is only as good as its weakest link, and if you favour so many events, what tends to happen is that you shy away from the ones you don't like. So I forced myself to like everything, and so it proved to be a good concept.
And the results are there for all of us to see. I don't think too many people know this, but Daley Thompson also ran in an Olympic final in the 4x100 relay. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I'm very fortunate enough to get on there, and that was a good bit of fun in 1984.
Yeah, but it's not fun, Daley, because you're running an Olympic final. You were pretty quick, that means.
Well, again,
you're being modest.
No, which isn't normally me, of course. But no, I think that it was fun, because I think sometimes people, from my point of view, they lose that kind of why we originally started to do it, and it becomes so serious that it gets stressful. And if you're stressed about it, then generally you can't perform as well as you would want. So for me, it was all about having fun and doing the thing I liked.
But talk to me, sir, about the mental aspect, because when you're the top dog, like like we see with Federer right now, each time he steps on court, there's an aura. But if you don't bring your A game for even, say, one race, you could end up losing. So that mental ability of yours must have been pretty strong, because to go through a 9 year period knowing that you're the best in the world, that everyone's gunning for you, and still, you know, being right in front by a fair margin.
Well, I think the thing is that you're right. It's about an attitude, and I think that if you're prepared to put in the hours, then, to be honest, the actual competition is the easy bit. That's the fun bit. You know, it's the other year that you've spent getting ready for the Olympic Games or the World Championships that is the hard bit. But I think you're right. As well as honing yourself physically, you have to get into the right mental frame of mind.
It's interesting you brought up the Olympics, because you won plenty in your career, but Olympic golds you won, and 2 of them, and those are what the athlete covets the most, any sports person across the world.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think the great thing about the Olympics is that it has produced all the other great people in your event, and you want to be like them. You want to be like the previous Olympic champions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they are by far the most important competitions to win.
Moscow Olympics was a special one. There was a boycott because of the prevailing conditions at that time. But the British Olympic Committee actually sent a team which comprised you as well, and you all participated under the Olympic flag. You know, these days, lots of politics happening in world sport, but it was a very brave call at that point of time.
It was, and I was a little surprised that we actually got to go, because our government asked us not to go. And I was very, very happy when we made the decision to go there and represent our country, because there was a lot of political pressure at the time. But I think they made the right choice, and we went there and we had a good games.
Yes, and when you look back in hindsight, perhaps the aura of you, of Sepco, actually increased because you all went as athletes. And ultimately, the Olympics were initially all about the athletes. It's a different matter of where it's headed right now. But the aura increased, and I've spoken to Lotko. He's very, very proud of that Moscow gold, and perhaps so are you.
Oh, no, listen, absolutely. I think that as much as we can, we should enable sport to go ahead without the interference of politics. I think that for the nations that did boycott in 80, I don't think anything had changed, because 5-10 years later, the Russians were still there.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that it was just a waste of time, and it was a waste of people's careers. You know, there would have been thousands of sports people who trained getting ready to go to Moscow and weren't able to. And it would be probably different maybe if something had changed or it had been made better for the inhabitants, but it wasn't.
Yes. You know, I was referencing Lotko, and I came up with something which he said about you, and I'm going to read through that. He said, Daley is a Stalinist. It's not enough for him to win. He has to mentally destroy his opponents. This is what you were referring, just that aura. You step on the park and everyone's a bit scared of you, but you go out there to win. Everyone goes out there to win, but some just do it better than the rest.
Well, I think you're right. I think that from my point of view, every time you go out to a competition, you're going to make a statement about yourself. And for me, I wanted people to always think that whatever else was going on, if I was going to be there, that I was going to be in the best shape and I was going to be the most determined person there. And I think you're right. I think people started to think that after a couple of years, and that's exactly what I wanted them to think.
But was winning everything for you because of the tough times you had to undergo growing up?
No, I don't think so. I think that winning was the only thing. I don't think, yeah, because as I say, in sports, the favourites tend to win, and the guy who's kind of supposed to be second and third, they tend to come in that. And I was very fortunate to have the talent and do the work. So if I was to justify doing all that work and having that talent, then I had to come first, because that's how it is.
You had to be number one on the top of the podium.
Absolutely.
But the reason I asked that, because in India, you've had a lot of talented people dropping out because they get content very early. And that seems to be the problem why we're stuck at just one individual gold medal. You know, a lot of people come up really tough upbringings, struggle against the odds. Some come from really poverty-stricken backgrounds. Then you get to a level where you get to the nationals or play one international tournament, get a job, get a government job or something like that, and they're satisfied. But that's not the end. That should be from where they kick on, and that's the mentality.
Well, I think you're right. For me, an Olympic gold or anything was never my destination, but it was part of the journey. But I always thought that I would have a career at it, and it wasn't to be just to make the national team or to become the national record holder. I wanted to do all the things that I thought that my talent, you know, would enable me to do. But I think you're right. I think some people are happy to settle for less, and fortunately, I'm not one of them.
You're not one of them, and all of you legends who have achieved so much in sport, it's because you've gone on and done much more than the other individual can. Are you surprised, because you've seen athletics over the years, are you surprised that India hasn't won with its population? We haven't won an Olympic medal in athletics?
Well, it's obviously your population is huge, and I think that it is surprising that at least in something or other you haven't come up with somebody. Obviously, you know, you guys are great at hockey and that kind of stuff, but I think you're right. There are some things like athletics where you just need, you know, that little bit extra, and normally that comes from within, and it's not something that you can necessarily teach people. But with the numbers that you've got, yeah, absolutely. There's any number of disciplines that India maybe, you know, because occasionally you have a great discus thrower, and that kind of stuff, but they don't make the next step. Yeah. And you know, but that's, I think, maybe the same a lot around the world. You know, they get good juniors and they're creeping up, and all of a sudden, you know,
it's perhaps waiting for one person to do it. Like we had in shooting when Abhinav Bindra won the gold, and a lot of great shooters coming up now. Same in cricket. Kapil Dev won '83 World Cup, and in hockey was displaced, and cricket came through, and now India's dominating the world, especially in the financial aspects. But I remember meeting you in 2005 in New Delhi, and I'm going to reflect on that conversation. We both were in a room with a really small kid called Budhiya Singh. He was 3 or 4 years old. He could just run. And let's take him as a case study. So I asked you at that point of time that everyone was talking about, this is the boy who's going to grow up, he can run marathons and he's going to run non-stop. And you told me then that let's see this boy's passion in 10 years from now. Is he still running? Does he still have the love for running? And today, he's nowhere.
To be honest, you know, I think that it was always going to be difficult, especially when you start so young. Because if he'd gone on till he was 23 or 24, that means he would have already been doing it 20 years. And you know, that's when you start embarking on being really good and being great and that kind of stuff. So obviously it was always going to be difficult for him. But as we already said, I think with the numbers of people in India, I think that with the right direction and the right help, then there's no reason at all why you guys shouldn't be winning or at least competing for more medals. Having, you know, 20 people in finals and that kind of stuff. Because I think you're right. You need to have people capable of making finals first, and then maybe medals, and then you'll get a rush, a big rush of them.
Absolutely. But considering your success which you had, and you were the #1 athlete across the world, in London I saw Jessica Ennis win the women's the heptathlon. But that's it, you know. You feel what went wrong? Why? Because you were the best in the world, and that you should have seen many more athletes come through. Why is it that it's been very limited in Great Britain in terms of decathlon?
I think
multi-events.
Yeah, no. I think it's actually the event is difficult. You have to spend so much time training. You know, I was doing 5, 7, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a lot of young people are not prepared to put in the hours and put in the time that it takes. And also, if you do have a reasonable amount of talent, there's going to be some things in the decathlon that you're not very good at. And it's a difficult mental process to be really good at one thing and people think, oh, he's fabulous, and and be admiring you, and yet there's going to be a couple of other events where you're rubbish and people think the opposite. And it's a really difficult thing for people. And so what they tend to do then is if they maybe started out doing multi-events, there's a couple of things that they're really good at, so they go to those. And it's quite understandable, because you have to be, again, you have to be really mentally strong to be able to have those years when you're not very good at the shot put or you're not very good at the pole vault.
Yeah, you got to play to your strengths and just cover up your weaknesses, not just ignore it.
No, never ignore it, but you're right. You just have to keep plugging away and not listen to people. And also, you have to sort of change the idea about yourself, because on the one hand you think, oh, I'm really good at this, but I'm not really good at it. And people tend not to want to think about the things they're no good at.
You know, Lord Coe, who you've spent a lot of time with, he's now the president of the IAAF. These are troubled times for the sport, because you know, a lot of attention was on Mo Farah and Usain Bolt. They've retired.
Absolutely.
And the athletics now is perhaps in crossroads. They don't have a marquee global star to market.
Absolutely.
And there's this other section which says that everyone who competes in athletics is a star. The sport as a whole should be promoted, not just few stars. And that was what was wrong with athletics.
Well, I think from a personal point of view, I think that that one of the great things is that you do have any number of stars within your sport for the shop window, but I think it makes a hell of a difference if you've got the best athlete on earth, if you've got the world's fastest man. And not only is he the world's fastest man, but he's a nice guy and very personable, and people want to talk to him and talk about him.
Nobody wants to speak about Justin Gatlin, if I could interrupt you.
No, absolutely, and which is a nice thing, of course. But I think that you're right. We should be, you know, prioritising the sport. But I think if you have really good sports athletes and they have really good personalities, then they help you in the shop window, because they appeal to a bigger audience. You know, because I think that one of the things about Bolt is that because he was nice and charming and all that, is that a much wider audience were interested in his results.
And that's a fair point. And since I brought up Gatlin, I just want to ask you, what do you make of the IOC's position? Because you've been a lifelong advocate about tougher sanctions on dope cheats. You know, the International Olympic Committee decides at the last minute to ban Russia from the Winter Olympics, then allows people to compete as neutrals, while the IAAF actually did not allow them to compete at the Olympic Games in Rio.
Absolutely. I think that one of the great things that Lord Coe has done since post his running is the fact that he was actually prepared to stand up. There were very few other sports federations, because the IOC allowed them to make decisions, that were prepared to kick Russia out. And I think that all of those federations, plus the IOC, have been negligent in their duties. And because I believe that they are more prepared to look after Russia, they are more, and other cheating nations, they are more prepared to consider appeasement rather than looking after the interest of all the good non-cheating athletes.
No, really, it's important you said that, because this entire talk is about we should protect clean athletes. But I think it's a whole lot of hogwash, because are you really protecting the clean athletes if you're allowing people to come back from doping bans? Justin Gatlin comes, he may be clean, but he's served his time, people say, but he did commit a couple of crimes, which is why he was away from the sport. He comes back, he's pretty good. There's a lot of talk, the questions are going to be asked, and that's not how you ask the athlete who's training day in, day out without putting anything into his body. You going up against someone who's got storied past.
No, listen. I think there are obviously two sides to every coin, but purely from a personal point of view, not only I believe that when people cheat, obviously they get faster, stronger, jump higher, and all that kind of stuff. I actually believe there's a residual effect, and that stays with you for longer than the ban. So you're still getting the benefits of the cheating 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And I think that at the very least, people should have to serve at least one Olympics, maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not one of those people who may have accidentally done something, then you know the 6 months, the 9 months, or whatever it is. But if you are what I would consider a serious and serial cheat, then I believe that you shouldn't be allowed to play the games. And I just think that the IOC have completely taken their eye off the ball, because they've had 2 or 3 inquiries that have said, you know, Russia systematically and industrialized cheated, and yet there they are. And well, lo and behold, 2 or 3 of them have been caught again.
After having pre-departure screening tests.
Absolutely.
But Daley, is the IOC and WADA also being politically correct? They make the right noises, but you got to walk the talk. But you remember the last Olympics? They were completely, you know, clicking photos with Vladimir Putin and all this talk. Nothing goes on Putin because they probably need Russia to host Olympics, or nobody wants to host Olympics right now. It's so expensive.
We will. We'd be happy to. We love the Olympics in London.
I love them as well. They were great Olympics.
Yeah, no, listen, I think the problem is we don't have, in most aspects of the world these days, there are not a lot of great leaders. And sport is no different. And I just think that the IOC and WADA, and I mean WADA are trying. Don't get me wrong, WADA are trying, but I think
they're not getting the freedom from the IOC.
Exactly, and I think in most places, the IOC are more of a hindrance than they are of a help.
It's interesting you say that, because Dick Pound recently at the Olympics said that, you know, when it comes to voting against extending the ban on Russia, nobody in the IOC actually votes. So you get a feeling that the top level is compromised.
No, listen, no, absolutely, and I think it is. We've already said from my point of view, the whole idea is to be protecting and helping the clean people. It's not about making sure that we don't treat the cheats too harshly, and you know it's all about face. And maybe it's political correctness or whatever and that kind of stuff. But I really do think that there should either be a change of attitude or a change of personnel.
But you know, Daley, you come from England, where cricket is pretty big like us in India. In cricket, you match fix, you're banned for life, or it's a significant period. You said that 4-year period. What you're getting now, 2 years, you appeal that, they may reduce the sentence. The IOC actually banned people from Russia, but they were still, CAS overturned the bans because the bans, perhaps the judgment was, we're still waiting for the judgment.
Yeah.
But the IOC was perhaps too fast in declaring, or whatever, there was lack of evidence, whatever they say. But cricket actually deals with this much more differently. You've done a mistake, out.
Yeah, no, listen, as I say, I think some sporting federations are much clearer and have much greater intent about the integrity of the sport and all that kind of stuff. And I think other people are much more interested in position, power and money. And you know, and it's a shame, because I think that there is a lot of bad that needlessly goes on, and it's just a shame that the guys and the girls that are trying to do it the right way don't have people in power looking after their best interests.
There's this Indian long jumper called Anju Bobby George, and
a girl?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and she came 5th at the Olympics in long jump, and
was she in Delhi?
Bangalore.
Bangalore. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And 1, 2 and 3 have all at some point of time doped, and she's fighting this case that, listen, Marion Jones also doped, so she's going up, she's now 4th. So her point is that, listen, everyone in that list has doped at some point of time. So I was actually a clean athlete fighting against people who were doping. I didn't come from a system where I could win medals, but I fought so hard. But where is the protection to them? Because why is the IOC not taking action and stripping those medals?
Yes. No, listen, I completely agree with you and her, because you're right. It is such a mess, and again, the people that really suffer are all the people that have been trying to do it the right way. You know, George, she should have had her day in the sun and been on the podium, wherever. But she should have been on the podium, and that would have lasted her for a lifetime. And no matter what happens, she'll never have that. And it just seems such a shame that some of it is preventable, some of it's not, because some people are always going to get away with it. But I just think that there just needs to be a rethink on what's good and bad about the situation that's going on.
Well, what's good or bad? Actually, lots of bad happening. But let's talk about the good, because we're here in Monaco, and nice 18 written there. You one of the original Academy members, founding members.
Yes, I was.
When you all set Laureus up, you know, a collection of all these great athletes coming in, sports persons coming in, you had a vision. But 18 years down the line, proud of what you've achieved?
Yes, you know, but I think like everything, it's a work in progress. I think that we have done fairly well. We shouldn't be patting our backs too hard, but I think because there's lots more to do. I think that when you actually look at what's out there and how many children and stuff are disadvantaged, there is a lot of people out there who need help. But I think that, you know, we are trying it one project, one kid at a time, and we're proud of what we're doing, but we're not resting on our laurels. We really want to try and make a difference, and hopefully in 18 more years' time we'll be having the same discussion, and I can tell you that, you know, we have done this much, but we're still trying to get better. And because for me, it's not about being bigger and being the biggest. For me, it's about being the best. And, you know, so that we don't waste too much money, and if there are other charities out there that we can help because we have good rules and stuff in place, then, you know, that's what the other thing we should be doing.
Yes, because the world is getting a difficult place to live in. Earlier, sports venues were sacrosanct, but
absolutely,
you even have terrorist attacks happening on sports stadiums now, like what happened in Paris.
Yeah. No, listen, absolutely, it's a fast-changing world, and I just think that you know, everybody obviously has to be careful out there, but also I think everybody still has to live their lives, and you know, we still have to have a good time.
Okay, have a good time. On that note, I will thank you, because I really had a very good time with you, Daley. Speaking to you after 13 years, but really entertaining conversation, and learnt a lot about you and that belief which a champion has, because you have to have that belief and that mentality that I'm going to destroy the competition. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.